Welcome back, boxing fans. Yes, today's video is a little off topic, but my other channels focus on basketball and Liverpool football, and then of course my boxing channel. So there's none that are movie review channels. So I figure I might as well release the movie review on the channel with the most subscribers. So you're welcome very much. Today we're talking about the TV show that's on Disney Plus, The Acolyte. I'm a Disney fan. I grew up, sorry, not a Disney fan. Let me backtrack. I'm a Star Wars fan, but I'm far from a Star Wars fanatic. I grew up when Star Wars originally was being released, and I grew up watching Star Trek on cable TV as a kid when we were very limited to the amount of channels we had and the TV shows that we could watch. So Star Trek was always a pleasant surprise when it was on TV and I could watch it. I've never been a big sci-fi person. I've read sci-fi. I've paid attention to it. I watched Dune. Looks great. But I'm not one of these nerdy sci-fi type of dudes that live throughout these kind of things. I don't play video games related to sci-fi stuff. I don't play video games. So, I'm not your typical sort of nerdy sci-fi fanboy type of person. I went to see The Empire Strikes Back with my grandmother, went to see it twice. That shows you how old I was when I saw it. I think it was 1977. I can't remember, but obviously very early. And my grandmother took me. We saw it twice because I enjoyed it so much. And the more recent ones, I didn't enjoy as much, even though a Canadian was starring in it. I think he was Canadian. Am I right or wrong? And I've watched most of the spin-off shows on Disney. Why? Well, because I'm a Star Wars fan, right? I enjoy Star Wars. I found most of them were okay, but I haven't really found anything that I think is great, unbelievable, and really, impressed me that much. I don't think anything I've watched that's been sort of a spin-off from Star Wars, I've given more than an 8 out of 10, right? And even a lot of those I was disappointed in when, of course, Harrison Ford's character was killed by his son. I understand the deep psychological Shakespearean story that's sort of entwined in there, but nonetheless, I wasn't overly impressed when they brought back Skywalker and he tried to teach the young girl to follow in his footsteps. I thought it was good, but at the same time, I wasn't that impressed. I enjoyed what's his face, Obi-Wan Kenobi. That was probably the one I liked the best. And why? Well, because being a Star Wars fan, I like the fact that this was more about Star Wars. Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi meeting on the secondary planet. That shit I rocked with. That was by and far the one I enjoyed the most, probably because of how it was most aligned with the original storyline, right? And the original storyline was the best. And because of that, I enjoy it the most. This is a spin-off, and I have no problem with spin-offs. You don't need any of the original characters. I kind of like the thing they just came out recently, even though I think the main character is probably too old to play that character at this point. But this was a character that was a cartoon, right? That I watched a few episodes here and there when I could illegally download them. And when they came off with a spin-off, I thought it was a good show, entertaining. And I'm looking forward to the second season because I think there's a lot that they can do with it. But ironically enough, and this is the problem with Disney and a lot of this woke BS we find right now in America. We saw when these guys were trying to push this woke mentality on African presidents and African countries. And CNN, news media interviewed these presidents and just their response, where they were like, we don't care. We don't care. What we do is follow the people of our country who voted us in. The topics of discussion they're concerned about are the topics of discussion that we focus on. At this point, none of them are focused on fucking the LGBTQ and how that impacts fucking the small or large or who gives a fuck audience in that country. Right? And people say, oh, these countries are so far behind. They're so unfair to the LGBTQ. No, the LGBTQ is a minority in every country around the world. And because of that, It's not really the main fucking interest for the majority of voting people in countries. You can even go to Canada, and for the majority of people who vote, these topics of concern aren't fucking our topics of concern. We have no problem wanting to make sure life is better for everybody, just like we do with everyone. But this is not our concern. We don't care who you're having sex with and what fucking issues arise because of who you're having sex with. That shit's irrelevant. So now you come out with TV shows and you're trying to jam all of this homosexuality, LGBTQ, transgender propaganda into these storylines. Yet what you're trying to do is you're trying to sell this small percentage to a large majority. And why do you think the large majority gives a fuck about your interests? They don't. These LGBTQ, gay and lesbian movies that come out that are really focused on these kind of topics that gay and lesbians could really relate to and really are sort of interested in, I don't watch. You know why I don't watch? It's not because I hate gays and lesbians and the LGBTQ. No, I don't. I have no problem. Literally. That's the world we live in. So I understand that, and I have no issue at all. I lived in Vancouver for 10 years. So really, I have no interest and I have no hate or negativity towards anyone. I feel people can be who people are, and it's nothing to do with me. Be yourself, do what makes you happy. Why do I care? Right? Just like what I do in my bedroom, my sex life, I'm sure you don't give a fuck either. And that's fine. I don't expect you to. I'm not out throwing parades and fucking boycotting and putting up all kinds of fucking issues trying to jam my sexuality down your throat. And if I did, I'd be criticized for it. Right? And this is the same way. Right? This shit doesn't fucking mean anything to the majority of people who watch these shows and pay attention because they're not interested in it. When you say you're going to teach this stuff to elementary school kids, yeah, people think it's wrong because this shit wasn't taught when I was in elementary school. They didn't try to teach pro fucking heterosexual and anti gay and lesbians. No, sexuality wasn't taught in fucking elementary school. And it still shouldn't be taught in fucking elementary school. If parents want to talk about these things at home, that's their topic of discussion. They can do what they want as a parent. But as far as the school doing it, what are you talking about? When I went to school, we had to sing the Lord's Prayer, say the Lord's Prayer, and sing God Save the Queen every morning. We stopped that because some people are not religious to that religion, and some people don't give a fuck about the Queen and the royalty. So we stopped that because we were trying to protect a small minority of people that went to school in Canada, because that's who it was directed towards. Not the majority of people, but to a small fucking minority. In Canada, we no longer have a Christmas tree. We have a seasonal tree. Why do we change the name of the tree? Not because fucking Muslims and Jews and other people don't realize it's a fucking Christmas tree, because they do. They're not stupid. They're not retarded. They know exactly what it is. It's a fucking Christmas tree. Just because you want to call it something different doesn't change what it is. But we changed it for a small minority of people who were offended because they don't celebrate Christmas. Who gives a fuck? You move to a country that does celebrate Christmas, and you don't need to celebrate it, but why are you trying to piss on everybody else's parade? Again, a small minority trying to fucking dictate to the majority. And consistently, we find this situation. And it's like, why does the majority feel that they need to fucking bend over and take it up the ass for the minority? As long as we're not going out of our way to persecute and make fucking the minority feel bad, inferior, or make them not have a quality of life, why do we have to change everything to make these people happy? It doesn't make fucking sense. If you had to vote on it, these topics would never get through court because the minority would never be able to outvote the majority. Right? And I understand some topics obviously need to be discussed. When they talked about gay lesbian marriage, I have no problem with that. I live in the only country in Asia that legally allows gay and lesbian marriages, Taiwan. Believe it, the only country in Asia. So hats off to Taiwan because that's something they should be proud of. They're accepting the fact that this is a reality. They're not trying to boycott it. They're not trying to let their bias stop people from being happy. But for the majority of people, they don't give a fuck that gay and lesbians want to get married. They don't give a fuck that their neighbors want to get married. It has nothing to do with them. And this is a similar situation with what Disney is doing now. Like, I'm watching this video and it says, woke backfire, Star Wars Acolyte lead actor exposed for being a racist. She is a mixed race girl. Her father is white, European, and her mother is black. I'm not sure from where. They didn't highlight that because that's insignificant, because they're not worried about her blackness. They're worried about her whiteness, because that's the issue here. Every problem in the world always gets directed back to white males. Even though we've seen tons of shows that Hollywood and specifically Disney have tried to force feed audiences that have been utter fucking failures. Not because white males are so opposed to it. We've had black actors, black female actors, Asian actors. We've had minorities in Hollywood who have been superstars, dominated. Do I need to say the names? I don't think I need to, because I don't need to fucking pander. It's there, right? Superheroes, well before fucking Black Panther, there were huge superstars and people loved it, and never did the ethnicity of the actor fucking pop up or become an issue at all. Blade, right? Great fucking show. Great show. Only now, in this 2010, 2020, does this become such a fucking fire point? And the point is because this small minority of people have nothing better to do but fucking moan and fucking groan about how unfair and unhappy they are. Even though when you compare them to 95% of the people in the world, they don't have a fucking issue. They don't have a problem. They're living well above the standard of fucking comfort and living in the world, right? They're not impoverished. They're eating every day. They're living in houses and apartments, driving fancy cars, have good jobs. Their race and sexuality has not stopped them from fucking thriving in America and Canada, North America primarily. These people are living this way because of their comfort. Because if they weren't living so comfortably, they wouldn't be fucking moaning and groaning about all of this shit, because they'd have real concerns feeding their kids, paying their rent, finding a place to live, not living on the street, living in their car, living in a park, right? There's people from around the world that are impoverished and really have serious fucking issues. And they don't give a fuck about this. And that's what these African leaders were saying in these interviews. Our people don't give a fuck about your made up, woke, social media, gay, lesbian fucking issues. We don't care, because this is not a fucking real topic of concern in 95% of the countries in the world. A few countries in Europe, Sweden, Norway, Germany, a couple places there, Canada and America, and that's it. The rest of the world literally doesn't give a fuck about these stuff because it's irrelevant. We're talking about a Star Wars movie, a spin-off TV show. Star Wars has always been geared towards primarily white males, the largest money-spending crowd in North America. That's just a fact. And if you want to sell little dolls and fucking lightsabers and costumes and have people buy the DVDs and go watch the movies and spend all their money being fanboys of these shows, that's the audience you aim for, because they're the ones with the most expendable cash. They're the biggest percentage of people in the country. Now, you're going away from your natural audience to kowtow to a small minority that in truth probably don't even fucking give a shit about Star Wars, don't watch the show, and could care fucking less. This is like we've seen, what was the show about African female warriors, right? And of course, the historical context of that whole show was fucking wrong, right? Cleopatra, another show that was fucking historically completely wrong, but yet people were complaining about white males being racist, stopping these shows from being successful. If that's the case, why didn't blacks, lesbians, homosexuals, transgendered, fucking Asians, fucking, and every other minority support these shows and make them super successful. One small select group is getting all the blame for these shows being fucking utter failures. Yet these other fan bases who potentially could make them super successful aren't watching it fucking either. And that shows you why. Because the shows are shit. They're not that good. And they're trying to use this kind of woke fucking bullshit to sell them. But you're not going to sell something with this because you're pandering to a small audience. The majority of people see this and they're turned off. And they're like, do I really want to watch this? Like, okay, so Brokeback Mountain. I'm sure it's a fucking great movie. Has really good actors. It might have even won some awards. Maybe. I can't remember off the top of my head. Let me know in the comment section if you watched it and if you know if it won awards. But I never watched Brokeback Mountain because I don't care about two homosexual cowboys fucking each other in the mountains. I'm not interested. When I hear the storyline, and even though I know it's probably a great story, and I'd be, emotional watching this difficult relationship between these two guys growing up in this environment, but yet wanting to express their love, but not being able to express their love because of this closed off environment they grow up in, all the judgment from the grizzly bears and fucking eagles that are watching them all the times. Maybe, yes. Okay. I would be sentimental. I'm a sentimental person at heart. So I would feel sad. I'd probably cry when I watch the shows. And, I'd walk away thinking the storyline of that was excellent. But I'm not going to watch it because I don't fucking care. Right? This is like John Boxing says to me all the time. Why are you watching my content and other people's content if you don't like it? Why don't you just stop watching it if you don't like it? It's ironic because he still watches all my content. He's probably watching this. He's probably going to make a review about this, right? And the irony is, I'm sure he feels the exact same way because this isn't just white men. This is men in general, black men as well as Asian men and Latin men. We are the targets for most of this white political BS that's being shoved down people's throats. When I saw that Acolyte was being released, I was interested in watching it. I watched the first 2 episodes, even though I heard some of the negativity, and I thought, it's okay. The homosexual gay stuff isn't too in my face, so it's not unbearable. It's not uncomfortable. It's not awkward, right? It's not like fucking dudes are blowing each other in fucking the episodes, and I have to be like, do I really want to watch that? And if you want to blow each other, that's fine. But it doesn't mean I want to watch it, right? It's just like if you watch a show with heterosexual sex and you find that disgusting, you don't need to watch it. That's okay. I'm not going to hold that against you that you find something not interesting because everybody has their own interests, right? That's the great thing about movies. You have so many genres. You have movies from around the world. Movies are fucking global. Hollywood is not even the biggest movie producer in the world. Bollywood is from India. Korea now is fucking killing it. Asia is doing great. I live in Asia. Most of the things now I watch are Asian. The majority, not all, but the majority of things I watch tend to be Asian shows, specifically TV shows. Movies, I still gear towards more Western movies, even though I can't really say that I'm that excited. And generally I am disappointed because nobody can write a fucking original script. And because you got too much of this kind of BS being shoved down your throat. Like I just saw when they re-released, what was it? Another Disney flop. Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. And so here's Sleeping Beauty. This whole story is about 2 dominant women fighting for power. The old fucking one who's been entrenched for a long time and the new one who's trying to unseat her. The men in this show are secondary characters, easily controlled and pushed around, whether the guy that's set to murder her being set up by the older woman to go kill this young girl, but yet the young girl being able to manipulate you enough that fucking you don't kill her and she has her way. The prince, who is a marginal character, who's only used really at the end of the story just to create a happy ending for the story. And then 7 fucking midget dwarfs who fucking jump at every beck and call this fucking girl has for them. Go wash. You can't eat until you go wash. Go clean the house. Go do this. Go do this. I mean, yet somehow that original show was deemed not appropriate for modern day women because it's controlled by men. I mean, when I heard that, and I even went back and watched the original. I haven't seen the remake, but I watched the original. I'm like, what are people talking about? Like, Disney's been pushing this kind of stuff, as well as lots of Hollywood, for fucking decades. Strong women characters, weak male characters are nothing new. Nothing new. It just now it's got to a point where it becomes fucking ridiculous. Ridiculous, right? It gets to the point where you can't even take any of it serious anymore. Like, literally, they released what's her face, Wonder Woman. I thought the first one was good. I thought the second one was complete fucking garbage, trash. You know, didn't even fucking finish watching it. Not even interested. Fuck that shit. Not interested at all. You take a concept, a cartoon that was created decades ago about a strong woman beating men, dominating. It's like when you had Black Panther and Luke Cage, strong black male characters in the 60s and 70s. You know, these characters have been around literally for decades, longer than the majority of people moaning and groaning on social media about how unfair life is for their minority, right? Literally. These characters have been written, were fan favorites fucking years and years ago. Before Black Panther became a TV show so that JB could fucking, you know, wet his pants over, that was a fucking cartoon character that every fucking suburban white kid was spending his fucking allowance on every week. Even though he could not identify with this black African character because he had never been to Africa. The only thing he knows about Africa is what he saw through, what do you call it? Encyclopedia, blah, 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 when he saw naked tribal women dancing and saw his first set of tits, right? Literally. That's the only thing most middle-aged or middle-class white urban North Americans knew about Africa. And then, of course, later it became about fucking, of course, starvation and Ethiopia and Somalia. And then, obviously, as you grow older, you learn more. Learn about South Africa, apartheid, Nelson Mandela. You know, you learn about the richest man in the world from Mali. You know, you learn about fucking from the Rastafari, from fucking, you know, Ethiopia that was assassinated, basically. So you learn all this stuff in history. But obviously, you got to live to learn. And that's what I say to a lot of people that are all over social media, all over my comment section. They fucking haven't learned because they never traveled. They're young. They haven't done anything. You know, the problem with young people, and this is historically true. I was the same when I was young, and these people are the same now. You think you know fucking everything, yet in truth, you don't know fucking anything. This is like having a conversation with my South African coworker who thinks fucking Palestine and Israel thing literally just happened fucking 3 months ago. And it was like, what? No. This and that, and then this, and the war here, and then post-World War II, England and fucking America creating fucking Israel in the middle of fucking all these Muslims. And of course, that's going to create drama. They did it, what? So they could control fucking oil in the Middle East. At that point in history. And now we are where we are now. You know, there's a big backstory to it. And people don't know fucking anything. But yet they're the first ones to comment on it. The first ones to act like they know everything. Yet literally what they don't know is everything. With this show, I haven't even watched episode 3, but apparently the pundits are fucking panning it like terrible. Because what is it? These two twin girls were born by two women, which we know scientifically is impossible. But nonetheless, they were born by two women that are part of a witches cult, which is all women, right? Just like, of course, what's her face? Wonder Woman, who was an Amazon, an all-woman society. Men were not necessary, right? You know, this was feminism back in 1950 when Wonder Woman was first done. So this shit's been going on for a long time. It just got to a point now where it's become ridiculous. And of course, the finger pointing and the blaming when things are not successful always comes back to people like me. It's my fault. I watched the show. I watched the first 2 episodes. Why is it my fault? I mean, now I'm making this video, but this video is more about these kind of responses. So the main actor, nobody's panning her, right? Literally, she's a really attractive girl, right? Obviously a mixed race girl, a girl of color. She's sexy. I would throw down with her in fucking seconds flat. And that's probably how long I'd last. But I'd still feel happy about it. She might not. But then again, I'm a white male. Why do I care about how she feels? But the point is, she comes out in this interview show with another black woman who I don't know who she is. And you listen to what she's pushing out in this show. This is racism. And this is what we hear from lots of these American black YouTube channels in boxing. They point fingers and accuse everyone as being a racist. Yet if you listen to their content again and again and again, you hear who's racist and who's pushing a racist fucking agenda consistently on their channel. That's why I talk about these channels consistently, John, because they keep exposing themselves as fucking hypocrites and racist. And the biggest channels and pointing fingers at everybody else. Channels that don't do that, I don't point fingers at. Channels that just talk about boxing and don't have a racial agenda consistently through their videos, you don't notice me ever talking about them at all. Because why would I? They're doing what they should do, talk about boxing. Whether I agree with them or disagree with them, I have no issues in that. I don't expect to agree with everybody. But let's listen to this woman, because as I said, I think she's super attractive. I'd still throw it to her now. It's just I'd probably fucking take her from behind and make it a little rougher, just because that's what she would expect, right? But let's listen to this. And you tell me, is it white males who grew up being huge fans of Star Wars, a multicultural sci-fi show where you have aliens and different people of different colors in the whole show, like Star Wars, Star Trek? These shows were the first real multicultural movies and TV shows in the cinematic universe. They cut lines of having strong women characters, of having different races in primary fucking roles, right? And they took it to the extent or the extreme where you had crazy alien looking people doing it. And what they're trying to tell you is that it doesn't matter your skin color. It doesn't matter what planet you come from. It doesn't matter if you got one eye, three eyes, four eyes, if you fucking, eat with your ass or fucking whatever you do. That shit isn't important. What's important is really where your heart's at, the kind of person you are. And that's what Star Wars and Star Trek have always been talking about. You look at Star Trek, what's his face, another Canadian, he was having sex on Star Trek in the 70s with a bevy of beauties from many different races, green girls and every girl. He was cutting through racial fucking lines in the 70s. And of course, this is carried over into the movies and into these spin-off TV shows and everything else. Racism has never been an issue with Star Wars and Star Trek. Actually, it's the opposite. But then you get people like this that are writing these shows that didn't even fucking watch the shows. Like literally the woman controlling Disney, who controls this Star Wars stuff, and then the women that are fucking directing and producing. I don't think the majority of these people fucking like Star Wars. I don't think they watch Star Wars. They didn't grow up fans of Star Wars. And ultimately, that's why their shows are utter fucking failures. Because they have no love or passion for what they're trying to do. They're using it like many of these boxing channels use boxing to push a narrative. And that's the only thing they're doing. And this is why they're unsuccessful in their narrative and what they're pushing as much as these people. But let's listen to this woman. You know what I mean? Literally, they're making fun of white people because if you want to make white people upset, kill a dog in a TV show. And they're going, yeah, see, that's what really bothers them. It's like, so because white people are sensitive to animal cruelty, somehow that's something to mock and ridicule. Actually, a lot of these simp white people, woke people, the majority of these people really are white. This woke generation of North American women, primarily, they're all white, right? the ones supporting you and pushing these causes, these lesbians and everybody else that you're supporting and want to support you, they are white. But yet you're mocking and ridiculing them and then go on to criticize the whole race of white people. Yet you are part of that LGBTQ. Is racism an issue within the LGBTQ? I don't know. I'm not a member of it, so I have no fucking idea. But like when you come out with these kind of statements, it shines a light on you. And people have to wonder really what to take serious about you and what agenda you're truly pushing.
Animal cruelty is the one thing I won't allow. Animal cruelty. That's the one thing. What gets them?
It gets them. White people.
I think it wasn't until I was older and I could really understand things infrastructurally that I got, oh, right, Hollywood is a white institution. And that means that.
So Hollywood is a white institution. 70% of Americans are white. So by the numbers, you would think that the majority of institutions in America that weren't owned and operated specifically by minorities would be white institutions. Hollywood was created, what, in the 20s? When the majority of the population was not even 60 to 70%, but closer to 90%. So of course, primarily, it would be a white institution, right? This is just, of course, what it would be. You're making TV shows primarily for the majority of people in America, primarily white Americans. Obviously, if you're as old as me, you lived through the Jeffersons and What's Happening and a lot of great black family shows, the Cosby Show, right? And these things were normal. Stanford and Son, you know, this was in the 70s when you had these great family sitcoms about black families in America, showing white Americans what it was like to be a black American, right? And we all grew up with that. So when people try to downplay and act like somehow people hate on this and have no understanding, and that Hollywood is totally anti everybody that's white, it's kind of like, where have you been for literally the last 50 fucking years? Sidney Poitier broke into fucking Hollywood and was a star when really at that point, you know, him, Cosby, and a few other black actors really were a few. And then it turned into where it wasn't a few anymore, where some of the biggest stars, the most powerful people in Hollywood were black Americans. I mean, there came a point where Spike Lee could release any movie he wanted, whenever he wanted, with whatever actors he wanted in it, because that's how much power Spike Lee had. He ruined it because he became too racially focused and then started putting out a lot of pure bullshit TV shows that no longer had good storylines and were no longer fucking interesting. And even black Americans didn't even watch it. But, you know, I mean, at a certain point, I guess that's what happens to everybody. But let's listen.
That representations within Hollywood are going to be extensions of white supremacy. And not just in Hollywood, but, you know.
White supremacy. So because something is a white institution, it means, of course, it's based on white supremacy. I mean, we know Hollywood. You know, Hollywood is mostly controlled by Jews. Just look at Mel Gibson, who pointed it out. So now you're looking at a subsection of the white population, right? A subsection. So to generalize about this white type of situation, first of all, you're not even accurate when it's an even smaller subsection that controls it. We look at some of the real dark and dirty things within Hollywood. And, you know, Hollywood is a cesspit. The majority of Americans look at what goes on in Hollywood and are disgusted and outraged by what's going on. When you have Me Too movements throughout Hollywood because of how women are being sexually treated and sexually assaulted, which is something we always knew happened in Hollywood, but of course it came out even larger. And it doesn't just affect women, it also affects men as well, right? I knew people that worked in Hollywood, actors, And I've heard some stories about the situation and how it works and how you get along to get along. Of course, that's a lot of the stuff that's coming out now regarding Will Smith and many others, right? Get along to get along, right? And nobody doubts it because this is how people view Hollywood. To act like this has something to do with the majority of white Americans is ridiculous because it has absolutely fucking nothing to do with white America. Nothing to do with white America. It's a small select group, a subgroup. Many people would point to mostly pedophilia type of merchants and all kinds of other fucking dodgy, disgusting type of predators. And they use this atmosphere or this power structure that's created in Hollywood to do what they want. But this has nothing to do with the majority of Americans. But yet you're going to act like it's all like that. And it's all tied together. And this represents all white America.
In music, in entertainment, and in media, we do put biracial light-skinned people on a platform and expect that to monolithically represent all Black people. But it's another way of, like you said.
I don't think everybody's saying putting Black and lesbians in the positions of power is trying to represent all of the population. Literally, Blacks have been represented in Hollywood for fucking decades and decades and decades. I remember when Will Smith was the biggest actor in Hollywood, and within the Black community, he was considered a sellout, a coon, an Uncle Tom, too white, right? Bill Cosby, who was very critical towards Black movie stars and musicians that consistently pushed out the N-word, thinking that it was bad for the culture and the community, right, was also sort of mocked and ridiculed, even though he's a more experienced guy who'd been around for a long time, had been through the whole situation. Then, of course, what happened to him, that shines a whole nother light on everything, right? So these are the problems. You put out a conversation like this, and then you try to sell a show to white Americans, white Canadians, and they hear you literally hate on white America. And their first response is going to be like, fuck you. Why would I fucking support anything that you fucking want to put out there? And justifiably so. If I came out with videos talking about fucking killing all Black people and fucking doing all this and all that, I would expect a pushback. I would expect it. Because when you push out hate, that shit's going to come back to you. And literally, this is what we see consistently from many of these people in these woke Disney fucking TV shows, pushing back against the audience. You're literally trying to sell the audience a product, but yet you're vilifying the audience that you're trying to sell a product to. And then you wonder why they don't buy the product you're trying to sell. Why the fuck would they? Why would they?
Making white people feel comfortable. They actually can't quite distinguish different shades of Black people.
And it's a way to crush down the story.
On behalf of the light-skinned community, it's our responsibility.
See, like right now, you're talking about light skin and the whole color gamut within Black America. This is a Black issue. If you're Black, you know what I'm talking about. Hate on light-skinned people is not from outside, but from within inside. Hate on dark-skinned people is from within inside. I work with Africans. One of my coworkers was dating a dude from Nigeria, really dark. And this became a key topic of discussion. Obviously, she's still dating him. She had a kid with him, was having sex with him. She liked him. But he was so dark that this was a major topic of discussion when talking to the sisters, right? Light-skinned people in America are always considered more beautiful. Tell me I'm lying. I mean, I grew up in Toronto. All my friends were Black. I heard these conversations day in and day out, even though obviously I'm not a part of it. I just like who I like, right? It had nothing to do with skin color or complexion. I see plenty of sisters that are dark-skinned that look really good. And I see plenty of sisters that are light-skinned that don't look very good at all, and vice versa. Right? I live in Asia, where skin color is a real issue. Within Asia, being dark is vilified. Being whiter is glam, right? So much so that girls use tons of makeup to make sure their skin is bleached and whiter. All right. Whereas, of course, white America, we think having a tan means you're wealthy, you have more time to enjoy yourself because you're spending more time on holidays, playing golf outside at the water. Whereas in Asia, it's the opposite. If you like literally never leave your house, sit in front of the computer playing video games all the time, put on whitening creams so your skin is as white as possible, so you look like fucking you're crawling from fucking a coffin, that is beautiful within Asian culture. That's why being a white man in Asia, you go after the dark-skinned sisters because they feel no love. And in truth, they're probably the most beautiful ones in Asia.
When it comes to, visibility, to know what spaces are appropriate to take up or not. And that's a lesson that I've learned. And I'm really grateful because I have a really extensive queer community and I have many people that I love so deeply around me who share a lot of the same values.
So now she's talking about her queer community. Obviously, she's a lesbian, which means probably she doesn't want to sleep with me. So that's really why I'm making this video and hating on her. Because if she was straight, I know I had a chance, and then I'd probably look aside at her racism. Well, obviously not, right? But I can joke about it. The truth is, within your queer community, are there no white people? Because literally you're mocking and ridiculing white Americans. And they also fall into this queer community. That's why I say, I'm not sure what racism and how race and racial politics works within the queer community because I'm not a part of that community. So I'm not one to speak about it. But any of you that listen to this and are part, you can feel free to leave comments in the comment section below and educate me on it. If there is racism and a lot of the same type of issues within North America inside the queer community. I would assume there are, but you should never assume.
Is me, and I can commune with them, and we can breathe about the state of the world, and we can also decide what we want to do together collectively to organize, whether it's like at a moment like this, if it's going to our local protests or...
As you just heard, Stenberg released.
See, so once again, it's again people who are wealthy, living first world country, problems. In other words, not really having any real problems. And because of that, they're creating issues where there are no issues, right? And that's what I say about many of these YouTubers. They're always pushing this racial narrative over boxing. You're creating issues where there are no fucking issues. There's nothing within the boxing community stopping black athletes from being super successful. Case in point, Floyd Mayweather being the fucking highest paid athlete in the sport. Manny Pacquiao, an Asian, another one of the most highly paid athletes in the sport. So when you try to act like race stops people from being successful in a sport where obviously it's not true at all, and actually it might be the opposite, people will call you out on it because you're creating issues where in truth there are no fucking issues. And with this, you're ruining a fucking established show with millions and millions of fans to try to push a narrative because you're concerned about your representation. But the majority of people don't give a fuck about your representation. When they watch these shows, if there are gay and lesbian characters in it, they're not worried about it. Through Star Wars, there's going to be gay characters and lesbians and transgendered and all kinds of weird fucking things going on because this is the universe that was created. But no one cares until you get to a point where you need to literally shove it down people's throats and then fucking call them racists and haters because they don't enjoy it. Right? And this is the thing that inevitably is going to fucking sink Disney. Because how many more fucking flops and failures can they have and continuously still hate on their crowd and expect people to fucking pay for the app, even though I haven't used it. That's why I need to download it right now on my phone. But there it is. Disney, right? I pay for it monthly, yet I barely use it. I don't watch it that much. And when they have a show that I'm kind of interested in, the first thing they do is fucking sabotage it and ruin it. And you can look here as a prime example of a lot of the quotes and reviews that are all over the internet, right? That people are putting out about this show. And this guy points out the key point: narcissistic. And this is really the problem with most of this woke stuff. It's people who feel disenfranchised and their narcissistic need to fucking have people, you know, identify them as something special becomes the biggest fucking issue for them. So they want to have their own pronoun. They want to have fucking their own protest. They want to have all of these kind of things. Yet the majority of people don't give a fuck. You can have your life, and as long as you don't infringe on other people's, people don't really care. I come from Canada, where French Canada has long had an inferiority complex and felt that English Canada hated them. But this is not true. English Canada literally doesn't give a fuck. They don't care. As long as French Canada isn't ruining the economy of the country, making the dollar drop fucking through the floor, and creating issues of this nature, English Canada is just happy to let French Canada get on with their fucking life. If they want to bring in immigrants that speak French, English Canada doesn't fucking care. The biggest problem English Canada has is when they want to go to French Canada and spend money on vacation, that French Canadians give them attitude because they don't speak fucking French. Yet this same thing doesn't happen when French Canadians travel outside of Quebec and travel throughout Canada and don't fucking speak English, because that's true. That happens. But yet people don't treat them with this kind of disdain, wondering why they're so stupid they don't fucking speak English. I traveled in India, and for Christmas one year, I don't remember where it was, but let's say 1998, a long time ago, maybe 96, 97, whatever. Who remembers the past? The past moves on. But I was at a table full of people from around the world: Israel, Iraq, Finland, England, Ireland, Scotland, France, Canada, America, Australia. Literally, it was a melting pot for Christmas dinner. Even though many of these people obviously don't celebrate Christmas, we had Jews and Muslims there. They definitely do not celebrate Christmas. Yet we all celebrated Christmas together. We had a big party outside of our hotel that we were staying at. And the only people I couldn't talk to were the other two Canadian girls who were both from Quebec. I was sitting there laughing about it with people from France who obviously speak French as well. Yet they also spoke English. And I'm not saying there's a problem with that, because I'm ignorant. I lived in fucking Taiwan for 20 years and I don't even speak Chinese, not very well at all. So I'm not acting like you need to speak a second language, and you definitely don't need to speak my language. You could speak whatever language you like, and that's fine. I'm just pointing out something. People literally have no problem with French Canada. This is a problem they create on their own, based on their inferiority. And this inferiority that some Black Americans have, the gay and lesbians and transgendered and the LGBTQ plus community, or French Canadians or whoever else has, this is an issue within themselves. This has nothing to do with white America. White America is not persecuting them. White America doesn't really care unless you are stepping on their toes. And now it becomes a topic of discussion. But otherwise, people really don't give a fuck, right? When people are talking about this show, they're not saying all this negative stuff about the show because they hate her because she's a mixed race kid. Actually, I don't know if I've heard anyone criticize her. They criticize the writing, some of the bad acting from other characters, and the fact that you need to stick this woke fucking storyline in people's face, primarily a fan base that's been around since 1970 and has spent millions of dollars on this Star Wars franchise. And instead of making them happy by putting out content that they're going to enjoy, you'd rather try to piss them off by calling them racist, ignorant, haters, and then wonder why they don't watch your TV shows. And this is a problem Disney's had for a long time now. But let me know what you think. Have you watched this show? Did you like it? Have you watched any of those other shows that had a lot of controversy around them? Do you think a lot of it was built on media propaganda, or do you think it's just people creating topics of discussion that really aren't a real issue, as I do? Leave your comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And I promise you, I won't be talking about movies that much on my channel.